Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC MMA Podcast. We have a great show for you today. We'll be talking about UFC 303 and the possibility that it might not be McGregor versus Chandler. As we get started, I do want to remind you to like, follow, subscribe to the show on whatever platform you are watching or listening to the show on. Also, we do get a number of questions and comments that come in during shows. So if you would like to go to gsmcpodcast.net, you can leave a tip or a donation that will move your question to the top of the queue, ensuring that we see it, and we would love to interact with those questions. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Tate, how are you doing?
Hello, Miss Sarah.
It's good to see you again. This is not the first time we've hosted together, but this is the first time we've hosted a video MMA podcast.
Wow,
together.
that's right. We've done this show. I used to be the host of the GSMC MMA Podcast for a number of years. Went on sabbatical, let's just say, and now we're back. Sarah and I both are back. But we are adding a video component to it. So it's actually kind of cool to be, actually in a way, first time back, first time on video, kind of whole different feel to it.
Yeah, different, lots more moving pieces to keep track of. So
And the world of MMA has changed so much.
It has. So it'll be fun to talk to you about that a little bit. So as I mentioned before, we are going to be talking about UFC 303. There is some speculation, some concern that that the main event might be canceled, might be changing. This comes from boxingnews.com, an article that says the UFC are once again sending out feelers over a new UFC 303 main event as doubts increase over a Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler fight. McGregor versus Chandler has been set for June 29th. It will be McGregor's first fight since breaking his leg in his 2021 loss to Dustin Poirier. At UFC 264. The anticipation for the fight has been building ever since the two crossed paths on the, am I saying tough or am I saying TUF? The
Tough.
Ultimate Fire.
The Ultimate Fire.
Can I say tough?
You can say tough or the Ultimate
31 series. Chandler also enters the fight with a loss to Poirier at UFC 281 in 2022. The fight has set a new UFC gate record exceeding $20 million. The first presser for the event was scheduled for June 3rd. Tickets sold out in 9 minutes. However, the UFC postponed the presser until further notice. The UFC 303 press conference scheduled for Monday, June 3rd in Dublin, Ireland at 3 Arena has been postponed until further notice. We sincerely apologize to all the fans who are planning to attend. When we have further information on a new date and time, we will share it immediately. Thank you. McGregor clarified those comments, saying obstacles were preventing it from happening. Since then, McGregor was pictured at a doctor's office. This raised concerns that he may have been injured, although McGregor had a smile on his face. Ariel Helwani responded that the UFC had put out feelers for a replacement. However, the reporter qualified those comments, saying he expected the fight to go ahead. Once again, Helwani has raised doubts about the fight. He writes, latest on UFC 303, around this time last week, all the anxiety surrounding the UFC 303 main event seemed to start to dissipate. By Wednesday, no more feelers about replacements were being sent out. All systems seemed to be go again. Later in the week, Chandler did an interview with The Pivot about it being all good, and on Saturday, UFC was promoting it again on the ABC Fight Night telecast. There was a scare about the fight being off, and the scare appeared to be no more. But since this morning, multiple sources are now saying feelers are being sent out again for June 29th for a replacement and or a new fight or fights. In short, there seems to be pessimism all over again regarding the status of the 303 main event. Actually, even more pessimism, it seems, than on Monday last week after the presser was canceled at the last minute. Is this insurance, due diligence, emergency replacement mode? Remains to be seen. It's all developing again, but it doesn't appear as though we're out of the woods either way just yet. More to come, and hopefully a definitive answer one way or the other in short order. So we'll see. McGregor versus Chandler at UFC 303. As the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there's fire. Or is this a publicity buildup? It's anyone's guess. That was all from Ariel Helwani. So lots of speculation, not a lot of answers. Tate, what do you think about all this?
okay, the fight was on, then it was off, then it was on, then they started putting out feelers for replacements.
Right.
Then they were replacement, the complete main event being in danger. Then everyone's set for the press conference. That gets canceled or postponed. Then they're putting out feelers again. Then they're saying it's good. Everyone's convinced it's a go, and now it's dead again. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm a big fan of Conor McGregor. I enjoy his fights. I root for Conor. Chandler is an incredibly talented and incredibly tough fighter. This would have been an amazing fight. But it's one of those things where if this fight doesn't go off, could it come a point where Conor McGregor is more trouble than he's worth? I know he's a big draw. And what guarantees that they will still keep pulling for this fight is at how fast this fight sold out. What kind of gate it broke. But it is becoming harder and harder to book fights with Conor McGregor. He's super talented. I know Conor hasn't won, I don't think, since before the Cowboy Cerrone fight. Well, I think that was the last time he won, which was years ago. He's still a big name. He's still a big draw. But this whole how do you put on a major event with your supposedly one of your biggest stars when you can't guarantee that he's going to make the press conference, that he's going to make the fight, that the fight's going to go off, that there's not going to be some problems? The last few years, there's been a lot of issues with Conor. I'm not trying to badmouth him. I'm just saying, I'm just telling it the way it is. When Conor McGregor is involved in a fight, there's a lot of hoops and hurdles that the UFC has to work with. And it's getting harder. Before, it was, Dana White used to talk about how all you have to, Conor's always ready to go. He doesn't turn down a fight. But lately, it has been incredibly hard to make a fight with Conor. And that is a challenge that your aging superstar is running into. And I do say aging because of the fact that he has slowed up. He's not as dominant as he once was. He's coming off back-to-back losses to Dustin Poirier. Did you pull up when the last time he won? Were you able to pull that up?
Yes.
When was the last time?
So the last time he won was against Donald Cerrone in 2020, January 18th, 2020. He then had those two losses to Dustin and then this fight. So then he loses, and he also Khabib as well. Before he won against Cerrone, he lost to Khabib, and then there were two wins before that and a loss before that. So so he hasn't really fought in over 4 years. Yeah, he hasn't won in over 4 years. But he hasn't fought at all since 2021. Now, in the defense, 4 years, he broke his leg. Yes, and, I don't want to rush that, but man, it's just getting to a point where if Conor doesn't do this fight, if this fight falls through, it may be time to start thinking about is it worth putting these events on for a guy that you can't depend on, that everything's going to be in limbo up until the very last second. And then he cannot, Conor can't afford another loss. You can't go 5 years without a win.
And I know people would be upset and say that because I know Conor has a lot of fans. But the fact is, Conor hasn't won since 2020. It's 2024, June 2024. So we're halfway through 2024. That's a lot of layoff. So he's had losses and he's had a lot of layoffs. He is still box office. He is absolutely box office. But if this fight is not going to go off this time, when will it happen? We've been waiting for this fight to happen for some time, and it still just hasn't happened. It seems like, Conor has a great life. He has more money than he ever thought he would have. And with that, I feel like since he's gotten the money, it has become harder and harder for the UFC to work with him and to close, to get events booked. Mm-hmm. It's too much. I hope this fight goes off because I would love to see this fight. As a matter of fact, when I was breaking it down and I was looking at this fight, I actually favored Conor. I thought with Conor's range and the way Chandler fights, I thought Conor's counterpunching and speed would be just perfect. Chandler's a perfect opponent for him. So I was taking Conor to win this by knockout. But the hard part is, can you even get them in the ring? It's proving to be harder and harder to get Conor in the ring. So yes, this fight is in major trouble.
Well, and when the presser was canceled and Conor's response was there were obstacles. I mean, that's not... Yeah, obviously, we don't need to know specific details, but when it's just something vague like obstacles, that doesn't ever sound good.
But think about this. Okay. And this is kind of my feeling like I'm bad-mouthing Conor. And I'm not meaning to. I'm just talking about it is becoming harder and harder to book fights with Conor. How I knew that this fight, what made my spidey senses go off that this fight was in danger is when the presser got canceled. The UFC had put on press events where, Conor don't have to be in the arena. He could be on his private yacht and zoom in. Mm-hmm. You understand what I mean? He could literally do a video call.
I'd like to do our next episode from my private yacht. I'll zoom in, okay?
Him and if he didn't want to be in the room with Chandler, they can be in offensive rooms. One can be on the phone. Conor doesn't have to be there, but you could have had Dana White and Chandler there. There are so many ways to put that presser on. And the fact that they canceled it or postponed it, that showed me that this fight was in danger. Before it, they were already checking for replacements. Afterwards, it got canceled, and then word got out that they were looking for replacements. These are all signs that this fight they're having a hard time putting this fight on. I think this fight is in major danger. And I think, but I think Conor needs this fight. I know that's kind of crazy to say that, but you can't have Conor wait another year. It can't be 2025 and you're finally hoping that Conor steps in the ring after having won a fight since 2020, coming off of a broken leg. These are things that are all red flags that I'm truly concerned about. So we'll stay tuned, but I am truly concerned.
Well, June 29th is rapidly approaching, so they're going to have to figure something out. And,
fast.
Yeah, and we'll stay on top of it and keep talking about it, I'm sure. Thank you for tuning in to the Andrew Tate Show. No, this is not the Andrew Tate Show. This is the GSMC MMA Podcast. My apologies.
Brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC MMA Podcast. Your support does mean a lot to us, so make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. Also, leave us a positive review. That really does help, not only us, but the entire network. You can also follow the podcast on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more update and contents. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to